Folks, we got some breaking news. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to join us. When I see you in the news feed, then we'll get started. I've got with me Senator-elect Dan Sullivan, Arkansas State Senator, who is one of my heroes. Actually, finished ranked top. As state representative, he was ranked the most conservative state senator in the state of Arkansas. All those guys, and now he's state representative. Now he's going to be a state senator. So anyway. All right. Yeah, I see some folks on in there saying hello. So, folks, just kind of bring you up to speed. First of all, regardless of what state you live in, across America, people have been struggling, businesses have been struggling with overreaching government during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what's happening here in Arkansas is not unusual. And that's why even if you live in another state, you should pay attention and you should care about this. Because what we tried to do, of course, I've been wishing, it's like, why can't our state leadership lead like Governor Kristi Noem in South Dakota? I mean, she basically said when all of this hit, look, federal government, we don't want your money because it comes with strings attached. We are not going to dictate to our people. We're going to let them take personal responsibility. We're going to let them enjoy the liberty of being an American citizen. And if they need to wear masks, if they feel they need to take extra measures to protect themselves and their health, then they can do that. But otherwise, the government's going to stay out of it, which is what government should do. And especially government that is Republican-led, as we are in Arkansas. We have a Republican governor, we have a Republican attorney general, Republican lieutenant governor, Republican-led House and Senate, which is so exciting. And that has been good for our state in so many ways. But in this particular instance, it's just not seeming like that. We had a lot of businesses hurting, a lot of businesses shut down. Some have not been able to come back at all because of the overreaching mandates. And so Senator-elect Dan Sullivan, along with a number of other legislators and citizens, teamed up and filed a lawsuit against the state government. And today there was a hearing. It was a very important motion made in that lawsuit. So before we get any further, Senator-elect, would you just tell people briefly what you all were asking this court to do on behalf of the citizens and legislators?
Sure, and the easiest way to do that is to say if we won. What happens if we had won the lawsuit? Mm-hmm. If we had won, we would have simply returned to a representative form of government. We don't have that now. And as Jan mentioned earlier, people from around the nation, governors are overreaching all over the nation and exercising authoritarian power. And in authoritarian power, people must follow the edicts of a ruler rather than a representative Republican form of government where people follow out of loyalty and honoring the country, honoring the state and their governor and the decisions that are made. Well, in many states now, the governors have used authoritarian power. That's what the lawsuit was about, was just to return us to a representative form of government. The judge today, and I'll kind of jump into that, the judge today ruled in favor of the governor, his motion to dismiss on some technical issues and on the merits of the case. So they did, the judge did dismiss us. We will file an appeal, and I will read our press release right now. Press release says, we always knew that this case would go to the Arkansas Supreme Court. Today, when Judge Wendell Griffin issued a ruling that contradicts the plain language of the Emergency Powers Act, we learned that it would be the plaintiffs, which is us, filing that appeal. Judge Griffin's ruling, unfortunately, would result in the governor having unlimited authority to keep Arkansans under the yoke of an unending state of emergency with absolutely no input from the legislature. That cannot be the law. And in fact, that isn't the law. Such an extreme position is both unconstitutional and all but ensures the realization of the old maxim that says power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The plaintiffs here represent all the people of Arkansas who seek to remain or maintain some control over their own lives pursuant to their God-given rights as recognized in the Constitution, and we're hopeful that the Supreme Court will agree. So I think that statement says it all. These are God-given rights that governors across the nation and in Arkansas have usurped. And it's time that people stand up and take it back. So we'll be appealing this decision onto the Supreme Court.
Do you think that, okay, so it goes to the appellate court next?
No, it goes to the
Oh,
Supreme
it goes
Court.
straight to the Supreme
Yes,
Court.
that's my understanding.
So do you feel like that our chances are better at the Supreme Court level than
Yes.
with, there was a Judge Griffin, right?
Yes.
Judge Wendell Griffin, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the justification that the judge used for dismissing the case?
Well,
Based on what?
based on law that we have passed in the legislature that he interprets means the governor has unlimited power for as long as he wants it. Well, clearly that's not constitutional. And I think everyone would understand and agree that governors can't just do an emergency order based upon what they want and when they want it and keep it for as long as they want.
Didn't the governor just extend that mandate, just the emergency powers again yesterday? Or was it today? Yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, for
Another
another
60
how many?
days.
Another 60. So it's another 60 days of wearing masks, of all the restrictions that are on the businesses, the restaurants. That I've talked to so many business owners that are just barely hanging on. I mean, it's just it's the extra things that they're having to do, and out of fear of a fine, getting fined by the health department if they don't do everything that the health department says they have to do, and it's counterproductive to being a profitable business. So it's just I can't believe we're here.
One of the first principles of leadership is that you don't make a rule that you will not enforce, or that you cannot enforce, or that you're going to enforce in an arbitrary manner. And what we've done with these mandates is put rules out there that, one, we can't enforce, two, they don't want to enforce all of them, and three, they're afraid if they did enforce them, that what the people would push back on. A lot of people think that these orders are guidance. Folks, they are punishable by a $100 to $500 fine, or I think it's 30 days to a year in jail. So if you go
That's
into
serious.
a restaurant, or your restaurant violates these rules, they're violating the law. Plus, the governor can pull the license of a business who is not following the rules. I'm in Jonesboro. Of course, we're a dry county, but the ABC Commission, the Alcohol and Beverage Commission, is sending armed inspectors in to walk through restaurants, to walk through bars, and making sure people are following these regs. And if they don't, they can pull their license from the wall immediately. Folks, that's just not America. And it's certainly not Arkansas. The people, it's time for the people to get engaged and really engage your local officials.
So what can people do? You say get engaged. That would explain what you're talking about. What do they need to do
Sure.
with their local officials?
Sure, we have, if you go on the Reopen Arkansas webpage, they have a webpage and a Facebook page. They have a sample resolution that calls for the city council or your school board or your local quorum court or your county judge or your chamber of commerce, but these local entities to pass a resolution, non-binding, that just asks the governor to end the emergency order. As a matter of fact, we had a lady presented one of those resolutions at the I think it was the Rogers City Council meeting last night, maybe Fayetteville, but Northwest Arkansas. We're going to be presenting that resolution to the Jonesboro City Council here, I think, next week. I'm going to Harrison, Arkansas, where we're going to present it to the Harrison City Council. I'm going to Greenwood, Arkansas, to try to present it to the Greenwood, Arkansas City Council, and just have people stand up and say, Governor, we want our authority back. Who knows better
Want
how
our power
to
back.
Yeah, who
Power
knows
of the people.
better how to regulate the businesses in a community than the local leaders right there? And it's really disappointing. Your local city council has no power. And here you have restaurants closing, hotels closing. By the way, we did a FOIA request of Mike Preston, the Arkansas Secretary of Commerce, and asked him if he knew how many businesses were closing. Guess what? He has no idea.
Doesn't know.
Doesn't
no
know.
Numbers.
We did a FOIA request on Dr. Romero, asking for the Arkansas data that proved some of these quarantines were valid and what the science is. Follow the science. You've all heard that. Well, we asked, what's the science on the quarantines? They have no science to back up the reason for their quarantines. So if you're sitting at home today and you've been sitting there for 14 days, as is your whole family, because a neighbor of yours you sat and had dinner with, folks, there is no data that suggests that is a reasonable response to what's going on.
Wow. So what do you expect to happen legislatively? Is there anything you guys can do in the next session to change the amount of power that the governor can exert in a pandemic or a situation like this?
Yes, there is, and we already have a draft bill. Senator Hammer and Representative Jimmy Gasaway have a draft bill. If you go on the legislative webpage, you can find that. It's under a interim study proposal now, but it's out there and available. That would try to pull back some of that power. The problem is the governor's going to fight that. Mm-hmm. He's already demonstrated that he does not want to give up the full authority that he has over every part of your life. So I fully expect him to fight that resolution or that bill.
How many Republicans have the backbone to stand up to his wielding power?
Well, I'm confident that 18 do, because 18 signed on to this
right,
lawsuit.
to this lawsuit. Right, that was a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
So, and thank you, those of you who did that. I know, I think people don't realize what it's like to go to the state capitol as a legislator, and I know now, not as a legislator, but I've been up there with you guys. I know the kind of pressure that can be exerted and how difficult it gets, because you've got things that you need to get passed and you need to get through, and if you want to get those through, you've got to work with legislators who have things they want to get through, and then the governor's in the middle of all of that, and it just it can get pretty intimidating, and
But,
I'm sure.
It's a great system. Our system is built on discussion, debate, dialogue, and compromise, which is exactly what the governor did away with. There's
So,
no more
have
debate.
you had a conversation with the governor about this whole thing? Have you talked to him since this lawsuit?
Not directly.
You're not.
I think
You're not talking.
the last contact the governor and I had was we played a basketball game about 2 years ago, and I think he blocked my shot.
Yeah.
And that's the only contact we've had. But we've been in communication. I mean, I've been in communication with his office. Again, it's about dialogue. It's about sharing ideas and about compromise on what we do. So there's been a big move by the legislature, not just me, but others
But
who have reached out.
You cannot compromise, though, when it comes to liberty. You cannot compromise on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the liberty of the people. And I think that too often our elected officials lose sight. And I'm not talking about the good guys like you. I'm talking about the bad guys who are quick to step on liberty, who are quick to step on your rights. I think that those people forget who they work for.
Absolutely.
And I think that people lose track of the fact that these folks work for us. I mean, Senator-elect Dan Sullivan works for me. I pay his salary. We pay their salaries. We pay for the bills at the state capitol. That's your state capitol, not theirs. And the government should be working for you, not against you. And unfortunately, since this pandemic, the excessive mandates have worked against the people and against the businesses of this state, and I'm watching it. So sad. I drive by, I'm going through so many little towns, and so many businesses have still not reopened, and I don't know that they ever will.
Right. And I just want to emphasize to the people that are watching and listening, folks, it starts with your local government. You've got to get involved locally. If we had 20 or 30 cities in the state of Arkansas pass a resolution saying, Governor, let our local government have some say in what we do in our local community, rather than this one size fits all. It's just not true.
And since you brought that up, since you brought up the local government thing, it is critical. If you say, well, what can I do besides call my legislator or whatever, you need who you elect to be your sheriff. Your sheriff has more constitutional power than the president of the United States in your county. That person that you elect for sheriff is critical. And the one question you should ask that sheriff who is asking you for your vote is, where do you stand on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? It's like zero compromise. And what was so cool is when this pandemic hit, we had a Sheriff Chris Brown up in Cleburne County, Arkansas. He stood up and he said, let it be known right now that this agency will not enforce any unconstitutional mandates against the people of our county, period. He didn't care where they came from, whether it's from the federal government or the state government. He's like, we're not going to succumb to that. And I really appreciated that. And then a number of other sheriffs and police chiefs followed through and followed suit. I don't remember what the final number was, but it was a large number of men and women in law enforcement leadership positions who stood up when the governor passed the mask mandate and said, we're not going to enforce this. So what are you going to do if you don't have the mask police to go chase people down because they've got real crime to deal with?
Right.
How are you going to enforce these mandates? What are you going to start cracking down? If businesses, you're going to make the business owner do that on top of all the other restrictions they're having to deal with. You're going to risk that. You're going to threaten them with fines if they don't catch people walking in the door and slam a mask on their faces. If they don't enforce it, you're going to fine them. And there are some businesses that have been fined since this started, have they not?
I'm not sure. I think there are a couple that have had their business license a threat
Right.
of them being pulled. And I know that happens frequently in Jonesboro. The health department comes by and they say you're in violation, and if you don't change the way you act, we're going to pull your license. They don't have to say that. The business knows that. And also they will print that in your local paper, that such and such a business is in violation of the health department rules, and that is really impactful to one's business. So there's all kinds of ways of intimidation, of threats that can be made that really make our businesses struggle. I talked to Secretary Preston just today about these rescue packages that are coming down, and folks, you hear that rescue package talked about at the federal level all the time right now. Let's get the rescue package out. Get the rescue package out. Well, guess what? Let businesses rescue themselves. Let the people of a community rescue their business. Make people not afraid to walk into a store that they think if they walk in there, they're going to die. And that's the message that's being sent every day from our press conferences and the articles that you see. And again, we did a FOIA request for the Department of Health, and it's not as risky as they say, especially in different areas of the state. And you have to go back to your local leadership, where your local city council, your local mayor, your local quorum court has some ability to modulate some of those rules and regulations. Your school boards, they know what's going on in their district, and they care about your people. The amazing thing is, Jan, every elected official takes an oath to God, not to the people. We take an oath to God that we want to protect your liberties, and we want to protect the people. That's our primary responsibility, is protecting the people and keeping the safety of the people at hand. So when the governor or anyone else tells you that he cares about the people, so do I, and so do we as legislators. We're not going to put you at risk health-wise, nor are we going to put your God-given rights at risk. Those are yours, and those are not given to you by me or the government or anybody else, and we need to stand for that.
Well, we sure appreciate you stepping up. Folks, bottom line is the government that governs best governs least. The government that governs least governs best. And we need to strive for that. We need to continue to strive for limited government in our state, as well as all the states, and as well as the federal government. And, I love the whole concept of personal responsibility.
Right.
Let businesses do what they feel they need to do, and let people do what they need to do to protect themselves or whatever. And I just,
early on, when this first happened, we didn't know who the people at risk were.
Right.
We thought everybody had an equal risk of death. And there was some validity to that initial reaction. But since then, we've had a lot of medical breakthroughs on who's at risk. We've identified those people. We've identified the locations. We've identified the county, the school. You know where the risks are. And it's personal responsibility. That's what our nation was founded on, about people exercising those God-given rights. And folks, I trust you. I trust the people of the state of Arkansas, not only to take care of themselves, but to take care of one another. We'll do that. We've demonstrated it. And this perpetual emergency is just not what our nation was founded on, and we've got to end it.
Okay, so on that note, how quickly do you think we can get before the Supreme Court and get this heard?
Well, we're going to find out if we can do expedited hearings. So I don't know the answer to that, but I'll call tomorrow and find out if we can ask for that to be moved up. You asked earlier if we had legislation. There are several tacks we can take, but the Constitution says the governor is the only person who can call a special session. So if we write legislation that says, Governor, if you declare an emergency, you have to call a special session, that may be a violation of the Constitution also. But what we can do is write legislation that says an emergency ends after 60 days and can only be reauthorized by the legislature, which would kind of force that issue. The other thing we've talked about is never going into sine die. You know, we meet and we get done meeting and we have a big meeting and we all wave goodbye and say, this is a sine die meeting.
Yeah, right.
We're over.
We're done.
Well, we just never sine die. And that way we can call ourselves back. Because the governor clearly has demonstrated that he does not care what the legislature has to think or has to say.
Yeah, we don't even need you guys now, apparently.
No, apparently not.
Why are we paying salaries to you guys if you don't get to make any decisions? So, yeah. Okay, so you're going to keep us on top of this. You're
Yes.
going to let us know as soon as you find out when it's going to be heard. And I'm believing that we have the minds, the brilliant minds on our state Supreme Court to make the right decision in this for the people of the state. I really do, and not make it political, but do the right thing by the people. I'm hoping and praying that happens. Thanks everyone for joining us. I've been talking once again with State Senator-elect Dan Sullivan. We've been discussing the lawsuit that was filed by our state legislators, a number of legislators and citizens, in response to the overreach of state government without seeking any input from the legislature regarding the emergency powers and all the excessive mandates. And of course, today, the big breaking news is there was a motion filed to dismiss the case by the state. The judge, Wendell Griffin, ruled for that motion, so the state won at this level, but they are going to appeal it to the state Supreme Court, and that is the next step, as well as try to see if there's some sort of legislative avenue to take to limit the power of the state governor in times like these, so that the people and the businesses don't have to suffer government overreach.
And I'll mention this too. If you want to keep updates, you can go to my Facebook page, Dan Sullivan, or you can go to Reopen Arkansas. But folks, there were a number of people that
Now, is Reopen Arkansas a page or is it a group? Do you know?
It's
Facebook
a group.
It's a Facebook group. Okay.
Group, yes, and they have to ask to join, but you
Okay.
can kind of read what's on there, but you want to post. But yeah, go to Reopen Arkansas.
As far as Facebook hasn't deleted it yet.
No.
Because
Not
it's not
Not
fitting
yet.
in the agenda, you know.
Yeah.
You've got to, right.
But they also have a website you can go to. You can pull down the resolutions that you want to take before your city council. But a big issue now, you know, we raised about $10,000 for this lawsuit right now, and we spent all of that. That's what our cost was. It's done. So now we're going on to the Supreme Court, and it's going to take another $10,000 for us to
pay the legal fees.
Pay the legal fees, because our attorney will have to go back and forth to Little Rock. They have to do a lot of research. And by the way, I was proud of our attorneys that the research that we did was spot on. And when the judge ruled his order, he just read it. He had already decided what he was going to do. So the arguments didn't make any difference. But we've got to raise another $10,000. So if you can go on to Reopen Arkansas or the Northeast Arkansas Tea Party, both of those groups have Facebook pages where you can hit a button and donate to them. But we really need some contributions to come in so that we can get started on this immediately. Folks, we are not going to give up. This is about your freedom. It's about liberty, and it's a constitutional issue. And you've got some great fighters down there in your legislature. It's not too long. It's not too late to have your local legislator join. So before we file this appeal, if you want to go talk to them and encourage them to join the lawsuit, we'd love to have them on board.
Okay. Well, Senator, before you leave, just so you know, Secretary of State John Thurston has been here, and he shot a target. And we're gonna hang it on the wall. We've got a wall of fame for elected officials to see who the best shot is. So I think before you leave, you should fire a few
How
rounds.
close do I get to be?
No. Anyway, all right, you guys, y'all have a nice evening, and we'll be seeing you around. Stay tuned to my page. We'll keep you
I
posted.
brought my gun too. I do have my gun with
You
me.
bet.
So
You
I'll
should
shoot my
always
own.
have your gun with you. Always. That's my motto: gun on you or within arm's reach, 24/7. Because needing it and not having it is a mistake you may only get to make once. We'll see you around, folks.